Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have spoonworms. Spoonworms are a strange looking little creature that can be found in many areas of the ocean, and of course, even in the Mariana Trench. These guys are basically just plump, unsegmented worms that find their homes in the burrows on the seabed. Different members of this animal family can live at different temperatures, but most of the deep sea variety live deeper than 3,000 meters where the water is icy cold. The deep sea spoonworms often see the females growing much larger than the males, and in most instances, the males end up living inside, or at least on the females. I'm not entirely sure of the logistics of that, but it does sound awful. In these species, their stomachs are much longer than their bodies, so their gut ends up folded and coiled inside of them, which I guess isn't unsimilar to human intestines. In our number 9 spot today, we have volcanic glass. Did you know that there are volcanoes underwater, even in the deep sea? Right near the Mariana Trench in 2015, scientists found evidence of what was the deepest ever known volcanic eruption. They didn't catch the actual eruption, but they knew it had happened because of the volcanic glass they found 3 miles or 4,800 meters below the sea. This discovery was huge because it is not often that we find deep sea volcanic eruptions, but it was the first time scientists had found one that had erupted very recently. The volcanic glass is created because of the hot magma coming into contact with the icy cold waters, which cools it down quickly. This discovery helped scientists understand what happens when an eruption occurs underwater, such as how some quick-moving creatures find their home in the aftermath almost immediately. It is said that around 80% of the world's volcanic eruptions occur under the water, and it's still something we know so little about, so this discovery gave us an incredibly important look at what happens afterwards. In our number 8 spot today, we have the sea cucumber. Sea cucumbers are creatures that can be found all over the oceans on our Earth, even in the most extreme environments, such as the Mariana Trench. These guys have many different appearances, but they all look somewhat like a giant worm or some kind of spiky, slimy cucumber. They're often called the vacuum cleaners of the ocean as they mainly feed on tiny particles of algae or microscopic marine animals, and they play a vital role in recycling marine nutrients. They have a bunch of little tentacles that they use to eat, and they can often be found on or close to the sea floor. There are a few species of sea cucumbers that can swim, but not all of them do. In some species, their tentacles are even able to secrete a mucus net that can be used to trap small planktonic organisms. One really crazy thing about some kinds of sea cucumbers is that they can expel their internal organs when threatened. This would seem like a huge problem, but sea cucumbers can regenerate their organs quite quickly after. They also don't have a brain, which I felt like was important to include. I guess maybe if we take our brains out, then can we regenerate our own organs? I'm just joking, obviously. In our number 7 spot today, we have rat tails. These fish are usually fairly large, and while most species belonging to this family are deep sea fish, there's one specific species that are found in the Mariana Trench. These fish have larger heads and eyes, but then their body tapers out into a thin tail fin, which is how they got their common name. Rat tails are one of the most common deep water fish, and they like to snack on things like smaller fish, some kinds of crustaceans, and even sometimes lanternfish. These fish are great scavengers, which is an important part of the deep sea ecosystem. When these fish are young, they tend to stay in more shallow water, but as they grow older, they migrate further into the icy cold depths of the sea. In our number 6 spot today, we have barophilic bacteria. This bacteria is characterized by its preference for an environment with pressure greater than our atmospheric pressure, which of course makes the trench a perfect candidate for a home. These bacteria have been isolated from deep sea environments and found to grow rapidly at low temperatures and high pressures. This low temperature high pressure combo that is found in the deep sea environment is usually the cause for the decrease of the fluidity of lipids, as well as the depression of the function of biological membranes. But this doesn't happen in this bacteria, which has led to the theory that they must have some sort of mechanism that allows their lipids to adapt to their extreme environment. Aside from their superpower, these bacteria help to support life by being a source of carbon for the deep sea animals that end up ingesting them. In our number 5 spot today, we have immense pressure. In every part of this video series, I have talked about the extreme environment that is the Mariana Trench and just how much pressure exists down there, but I haven't taken the time to really dive into just how much pressure is down there So we're gonna do that now. The deeper you go into the ocean, the more pressure you'd feel. Close to the surface of the ocean, we're sitting at a base of 1 atmospheric pressure, but when you go just 10 meters deep, that number already doubles. Considering the Mariana Trench is 11,000 meters deep, this is obviously going to increase greatly. The pressure causes the air in your body to compress, and the deeper you go, the more dense the water becomes. While the concept of the increasing pressure is easy to understand, it truly is really hard to conceptualize how this change happens and just how deep this trench really is. 1 atmospheric pressure is 1.01325 bars, which is the unit used to measure pressure. So like I mentioned before, this is where we were sitting when close to the surface of the ocean, but in the depths of the Mariana Trench, that number skyrockets to 1,086 bars, which apparently would be the equivalent of 100 elephants standing on you. So it's suddenly making a lot more sense as to why people don't journey down to the Challenger Deep very often. In our number 4 spot today, we have arrowtooth eels. The arrowtooth eels that reside in the Mariana Trench are a species that not much is known about. These eels range somewhere from 23 to 160 centimeters or 9.1 to 63 inches in length. They're a bottom-dwelling fish and can be found in waters around 3,700 meters or 12,100 feet deep. They can be told apart from other eels in their early stages because of their telescopic eyes during the larva stage. These guys like to feed on the scraps left over from other larger fish meals as well as invertebrates, but they have also been known to be partly parasitic as they sometimes burrow into the flesh of other fish. Here's a little clip of one swimming past a camera that is located around 11,000 meters deep in the sea. In our number 3 spot today, we have the hydrothermal vents. The Mariana Trench is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, which is a tectonically active region where plates are colliding and causing subduction, which is how the trench itself was formed. Through this tectonic activity, as seawater seeps downwards through the oceanic crust, it gets really hot and becomes very rich in chemicals. This leads to the water becoming so buoyant that it comes back out of the surface of the sea floor, and this is what is called a hydrothermal vent. The water coming out of the vent is that same super hot, super chemically rich water, and it is an extremely important part of underwater ecosystems. The water from the vent is highly acidic and hot, while the water in the depths of the ocean is slightly basic and freezing cold. There are many different smaller species who come to the vent areas because of the chemicals in the water as well as the heat, which helps certain types of food sources grow, which they then want to consume. This then leads to it being a feeding hotspot, as larger predators can also come to the vent to feed on the other smaller organisms that are already in the feeding area. There are usually a high amount of animals found in the area of a hydrothermal vent, but not a wide variety of different animals, as the temperature extreme is not suited for everyone in the deep sea. In our number 2 spot today, we have vent crabs. Okay, so to piggyback off of the last point, we have a creature that loves the hydrothermal vents, and that is the aptly named vent crab. These white crabs are actually endemic to hydrothermal vents, and they were first described in 1980. The crabs in this family are usually blind and abundant. In fact, their numbers are so vast that scientists often use the clusters of them to help find the location of the hydrothermal vents. The eyes of vent crabs change throughout their life, which helps them adapt to their environment. Young vent crabs usually have eyes that would be comparable to their shallow water companions, but upon metamorphosis, their eyes degenerate and become naked retinas. Hydrothermal vents produce light in the infrared wavelengths, and this change in the vent crab's eyes actually allows them to better see this light, although it causes them to not be able to see most other things. It's like a similar concept to night vision goggles. So basically, vent crabs have night vision, I guess? It is so interesting to see and learn about how these deep sea creatures adapt to their individual environments and circumstances. Vent crabs often eat tiny organisms and bacteria, which is another reason they thrive near the vents. In our number 1 spot today, we have giant isopods. Before I dive into this, number 1 point, make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far. It really helps us out. Despite their appearance, these guys are neither aliens or pill bugs and are just another one of those strange and weirdly large deep sea creatures. These rather large crustaceans can reach lengths of around 15 inches, and while that's not the biggest deep sea creature out there, that's still pretty insane for the isopod world. These guys get their size from what is known as deep sea gigantism, which is an evolutionary tendency for deep sea creatures to grow larger than their shallow water counterparts. It isn't exactly clear why this happens, but it does, and is seen in a few different species, such as those giant shrimps we were talking about last time. It is thought that it may be due to the cold temperatures, which may increase cell size and lifespan, which both may lead to increased body size. Giant isopods are related to woodlice, albeit distant cousins, which is why they look kind of similar. These guys are scavengers who usually wait to collect the scraps of whatever is left over from another predator's meal, whether those leftovers are located on the seafloor or if they're falling from the waters above like sea snow.
Coming in at number 9 is the vampire squid. It's incredibly fast, incredibly pale. It sparkles in the light. You know what it is. The vampire squid. But if you said Edward Cullen, I wouldn't be mad either. Now, the vampire squid is the last surviving member of the Vampira morphida, and therefore they share qualities with both the octopus and the squid. It uses its ear-like fin to swim, and its jellyfish-shaped body helps it swim fast. They can grow up to being 30 centimeters long and vary from being a pale red color to being jet black. When they're on the hunt, they use the photophores covering their body to light up in patterns that confuse their prey. When they're the ones being hunted, they pull the webbing between their tentacles right over their head and just hide in there, kind of like a cocoon. Kind of like I do when I'm having a depressive episode, just in my cocoon. At number 8, we have the deep sea hatchetfish. Now, I don't ever use the term fugly because I think it's so rude, but this sour-faced looking fish is actually fugly. The hatchetfish is quite small. They only go up to 3 to 12 centimeters long, which is actually nothing. Hence, as you can imagine, they're quite an easy prey. Despite being disadvantaged by their size, their camouflaging techniques makes them basically invisible to predators. They produce light from their stomach, making them bioluminescent. They control how much light they emit by how much light is in the water at the time. If you reveal your silhouette, then it's game over, so they try and match the light levels in the water so they remain hidden. They can be found anywhere between 50 meters below the surface to 1,500. Filling our number 7 slot is the ping pong tree sponge, aka the chondrocladia. Honestly, when I first saw a picture of the sponge, I thought it was a bunch of balloons on a stick, but I mean, I refuse to judge the creature by its name or its balloon-like structure, so let's get into it. It's thin and long and has little translucent balls at the end of it which look like ping pong balls, hence the name. However, they're actually dotted with tiny hooks, meaning if any prey gets too close, they'll become trapped and then the sponge will just start eating it alive. It is legitimately a flesh-eating sponge that's found 2,700 meters under the surface. Now, at number 6 is the Dumbo octopus, scientifically known as the Grimpotethys. Now, from the name, you can probably guess that this creature kind of looks like Disney's Dumbo the elephant. It has floppy ears on the side, deep-set eyes, and 8 short, tiny tentacles, and honestly, it's quite cute. I wouldn't mind finding that if I was deep underwater. However, you guys know me, I'll never be deep underwater. It can be found at least 9,800 meters deep in the trench, and I kinda want to hug it. The Dumbo octopus can grow up to being 8 to 12 inches big, and they actually travel through the water by flapping their ears. But don't be fooled by their cuteness, because they can still swallow their prey in one single gulp. So I mean, coming in at number 5 is the frilled shark. Now, you guys know how I feel about sharks. I refuse to look at them. I don't even want to think about them. I really wouldn't mind if they went extinct, but that's just me. Now, the frilled shark is one of the ugliest variations of the mammal that I have ever seen. They have a snake-like body, but they sort of look like eels and boast a set of 300 teeth, which is insane. Despite living so deep, at least 5,000 meters below the surface, the frilled shark was actually one of the first deep-sea creatures to ever be discovered. I don't know how, since they're so deep and frankly terrifying, but facts are facts. The name is inspired by the creature's frilled gills. They've been dubbed a living fossil, so they have very primitive looking features, and honestly, when you look at it, you'll know what I mean. The thing looks like it's been alive for 1,000,000 years, and it's on its last breath, and hopefully, for my sake, I hope it is. Mic drop. At number 4 is the deep sea dragonfish. I feel like the deeper the creatures are, the uglier they get. Like, why is that the rule of this video? The dragonfish has oversized teeth, slippery skin that looks like an eel's, and a hideous face. Reaching up to 6 inches long, they can be found between 700 to 6,000 feet below the surface and are known as an assassin. Like most deep-sea creatures, the dragonfish is bioluminescent and not only uses it to hide from its predator and prey, it also glows in order to communicate with its own kind. They're ugly because they have this whisker-like lighted barbell coming out from its lower jaw that other fish think is a meal, so they just come closer and closer thinking they're gonna get their lunch, and they're not. You know why? Because it's a trap. It's a trap. Filling on number 3 slot is the barrel eye fish, and this fish made me laugh so much, I don't even know why. For some reason, it just looks like it's so done with life and it's just so over everything, like it's just so mad at the fact that it's a barrel fish. It's like, why me? And you know for a fact if it could talk, you know it'd have those deep voices and would just take way too long to even complete a sentence. Either way, first things first, this fish has a transparent head. Let's just talk about that. It has 2 barrel-shaped eyes that point upwards, allowing it to see the silhouette of all its prey. They can be found between 400 to 2,500 meters deep, and scientists theorize they have transparent heads so they can get a bit more light inside. Personally, I just think this one is kind of cute. Now, at number 2 is the telescope octopus, found at depths deeper than 6,500 feet. These octopi don't swim horizontally, no, they actually suspend themselves upwards. That makes it harder for predators below them to see their shape. They're almost completely transparent, and the reason they're called the telescope octopus is because they have 2 protruding eyes that not only rotate, they also allow the octopus a much wider peripheral vision. Honestly, they're also kind of cute and small, and their eyes are tiny. They're just very cute little creatures. The octopus, it looks like one of those toys you'd get in a McDonald's Happy Meal. I know this because I have eaten many McDonald's Happy Meals growing up. It's my go-to order, my chicken burger, gotta have it. And finally, at number 1 is the goblin shark. Now, I think this creature is by far the ugliest one on the list, which may be why it takes our number 1 spot, I'm not gonna lie to you. Also known as a living fossil, this species is 125 million years old and can be found at depths lower than 4,300 feet. They can grow anywhere between 10 to 13 feet long, and the most prominently ugly thing about them is their snout. It kind of resembles a sword, and its jaws not only protrude, they extend when eating. If that isn't horrific enough, they also have 30 to 50 teeth on their upper jaw and 30 to 60 on their lower. The goblin shark uses sight, smell, and electroperception to track down their prey, but you don't know that much about them since sightings of them are so rare.
Alright, coming in at number 10, we have the Ghost River of the Black Sea. I love a good mystery, as we all know, but riddle me this. How can a river flow underwater? That is some crazy mythical talk right there. Deep under the Black Sea, there is a river that was discovered only 9 years ago, but has likely flown for hundreds of years. The river looks extremely haunting indeed, and even has trees growing beside it, and a cascading waterfall. The river was found 60 meters deep, and it is massive. It's 350 times greater than the UK's River Thames, and 10 times bigger than Europe's biggest river, the Rhine. What's happening down there? River. Coming in at number 9, this actually makes me really sad, we have the Titanic's ghost shoes. Okay, it's time for some real talk, so brace yourselves. As we know, the Titanic infamously sank in 1912 after striking an iceberg, and 1,500 souls perished in the aftermath, mostly because there weren't enough lifeboats to save those on board. A lot of people literally went down with the ship, and they sank with it in its 2 halves, which are now 12,000 feet down at the bottom of the ocean. That's over 2 miles down. So you would expect that the ship would be absolutely littered with skeletons, and it was for a while, but not anymore. The first time the Titanic wreck was found and explored by divers was in 1986, over 70 years after it had sunk. Movie director James Cameron made a handful of trips down there to the wreck when he was researching and then filming the Titanic movie. When the movie director was asked about the macabre state of the ship, where the bodies are and such, he revealed that actually all of the corpses of the victims have disappeared. Why? Well, it seems that skeletons dissolve very quickly under pressure, and the pressure over 2 miles down into the sea is very high indeed. Hauntingly though, while the bodies may have disintegrated, what is left is the pairs of shoes that they were wearing when they died, and they are absolutely everywhere. So why is that? It's because the shoes back then were treated with tannic acid, which has served to protect them from dissolving. Have a listen to this clip.
A pair of women's shoes?
Yeah.
Next to a pair of girls' shoes. These were people.
These were people. Those shoes got to the bottom
double.
Every pair of shoes down there serves as a haunting reminder and a grave marker for where the humans felt their final resting place. I honestly think about the ghost shoes of the Titanic a lot. Speaking of a shipwreck, at number 8 we have the world's oldest shipwreck. That we know about, anyway. That's kind of the beauty, right? We think that one thing's old, but then we find another thing, and we just keep on progressing. And I love life because of that. Hurrah. In 2018, divers made an incredible discovery a mile below the surface of the Black Sea. The Black Sea again, we've already heard about the Black Sea on this list. What is going on in this spooky stretch? This particular section of the ocean was just off the coast of Bulgaria, where divers discovered an ancient Greek vessel thought to date back 2,400 years. Can you even believe it? That's older than most cities in Europe. The 23-meter long boat has been preserved by a lack of oxygen on the seabed, which has meant that its mast and its rudders and all the other shippy bits are still looking decidedly shippy. Professor John Adams from the Maritime Archaeology Project said, "A ship surviving intact from the classical world, lying over 2 kilometers down in the water, is something that I would never have believed possible." Well, believe it. Coming into number 7, we have the lost cities. There have been many cities that have been lost to the ocean. The ancient city of Atlantis is somewhat of a legend and it's never been found, but there are plenty of ancient cities that do officially lie in observable ruins. Heracleion, for example, lies off the coast of Egypt near the mouth of the famous River Nile. It was found in the year 2000 by underwater archaeologist Frank Godot, but prior to that, it was thought that, like Atlantis, the city was just a work of lore. It is connected with legends of Heracles and Helen of Troy after all. Have a look at some of the ancient statues found strewn across the seabed. Honestly, how utterly haunting. Some of the artifacts have now been raised from the ocean, where they've been hidden for an entire millennia. As ocean levels rise on Earth, how many other cities will meet a similar fate? That's kind of why sustainability is such an integral focus at this point in history. So from lost cities and old ships, we have what could be the world's oldest computer. Coming into number 6, we have the mysterious Antikythera mechanism. Yay, I said it right. This ancient Greek analog computer was used to predict astronomical positions and solar eclipses. It's thought that this computer was used as a calendar with which to track the 4-year cycles of the old Olympic Games. The mechanism was lost for 2,200 years on the world's second oldest shipwreck. The artifact was initially discovered in 1901 when Greek sponge divers found an encrusted greenish lump, but 75 years later into its future, its true nature began to be revealed. Now we know that the artifact contained over 30 handmade cogs and could nearly accurately track the movement of planets and constellations. The discovery goes to show that the ancient Greeks knew so much more than we thought that they did. Coming into number 5, we have deep sea monsters. Okay, so we're around the middle spot on this list, so I think now is a good time to tell you that actually nature is demented. Like, it's proper crazy down there. We discover thousands of new marine species each year, and well, as you know, the Earth is 80% water, so who knows what else is lurking down there. What we do know is that actually the ocean is filled with an absolute horror show, an absolute lineup of monsters. Here I am bopping in to just name a few that will ruin your day. Meet the sarcastic fringehead shark, the humpback anglerfish, the northern stargazer, the vampire eel, the giant squid, the pelican eel, and of course everyone's mate the blobfish. I'm telling you, it's dark, cold and creepy down there. Coming into number 4, we have Mariana's sounds. Did I say that the ocean was dark, cold and creepy? I guess I missed out the fact that the ocean is also filled with a veritable horror score of mysterious sounds. Mariana's Trench is the name given to the deepest part of the ocean. Usual ocean depths are around 2-ish miles down, but mate, let me tell you this, Mariana's Trench off the coast of Guam is nearly 7 miles down. No. What do you think lives down there? Sea cucumbers and strange sounds. In 2014, scientists heard a weird pinging sound coming from the waters around the super deep super creep. That's what I'm calling Mariana's Trench from now on. Have a listen and let me know what you think this unidentified sound is. nobody, including our mates the NOAA, were too sure what it was. But now, a team of researchers from Oregon State University have decided that the alien-like sound could be a new call from a baleen whale. Still though, this is unconfirmed, and I don't feel good about deep sea sounds, especially when I've seen some of the horrors that live down there. Nah. Coming into number 3, we have unexploded nukes. Oh, you didn't know there were lost and discarded nuclear weapons across the world's oceans? Hate to tell you, but yeah, there are. A lot. In fact, a whole host of non-nuclear but still very dangerous bombs are also hanging out unexploded in the deep. Sorry to ruin your day. One fun example, in December 1965, a plane carrying a Megatron nuclear warhead rolled, yes rolled, off the deck of an aircraft carrier into the Sea of Japan, where it stays forevermore, or until it surfaces. Ugh. There is a 30 kilotron fat man in the Pacific somewhere too, but Rebecca, this is a list about found things, not lost things. Sure, but I'm saying one day they will turn up. Maybe in a sleepy seaside village near you. A big boy bomb washed up in North Carolina in November 2018. That beast was from World War II, 70 plus years, and she found her way to the shore. Honestly, the thought terrifies me. Coming into number 2, we have the spaceship of the Baltic Sea. Some call it the Baltic Sea anomaly, others call it a crash-landed UFO that sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and some people think it is the spit of the Millennium Falcon. In 2014, an image of the strange object was circulated by professional divers. It seems that the mysterious object is raised 13 feet above the seabed and is surrounded by a very mysterious rock formation. What is it? Well, the website Snopes thinks that it's a big fat fake, but others aren't so sure. Finally, coming into number 1 of our scariest things found in the ocean, we have 100 plus years of human waste. Many of us have seen the tragic videos of wildlife caught up in human trash dumped in the ocean, or the plastic straw in the crying turtle's nose, but actually this horrifying stuff is really just the tip of the iceberg. It seems like we have a disconnect about where our trash goes. When you throw something away, we just forget about it because it isn't our responsibility anymore, but actually it doesn't mean that that thing stops existing. It is estimated that by the year 2050 there will be as much plastic in the ocean by weight as there is marine life, which is actually mental. Ocean pollution is a real issue. Some of our waste has been lost to the deep sea, some of it is still floating on the top of the ocean. Have a look at this shocking image of plastic floating in the Caribbean. More facts for you. 5 trillion pieces of microplastics are currently in the ocean, with 1 whole truckload added each minute. Jack Finch as well as Che and I were talking about how disgusting the throwaway culture we live in is today, but luckily there are apps like Buns that are looking to tackle the issues and encouraging us to trade things that we don't want anymore rather than throwing them away. But of course we need to be more aware of things like non-recyclable coffee cups and plastic bottles, if not we're literally going to poison our water, and like, to put it lightly, that would suck.